A great title for this next talk is How to Hack an Earthquake. And Gisela Pérez de Acha is in from Mexico to talk about that. Gisela.
Have you ever been in an earthquake? But I mean like a true big one where you feel like all the laws of physics suddenly are suspended. And stability, either literal or metaphorical, just gets tossed into the air. If you have been in an earthquake, you probably know what I'm talking about. I was going to talk about autonomous feminist infrastructure in Latin America when the 19th of September, a deadly earthquake hit Mexico City. I was in my office. Suddenly, the books started falling out of the shelves. Glass was shattering. I was trying to run out of the building, but I was so dizzy I couldn't even get out. Out on the streets, the neighbors were crying, holding each other, yelling for help. The building right across the street was collapsing, and we were just petrified and had nowhere to run to. It lasted for 3 horrifying minutes. And that day, 30 buildings did collapse in Mexico City, and hundreds of people were trapped under the rubble. One of the first things I did after making sure my family and loved ones were okay was go on Twitter, #millennial over here, and tweet, use voice over IP so we don't jam the phone lines. Then my mom asked me, how on earth did you think that after truly believing you were going to be crushed by a building? Well, I am an activist. I'm a human rights lawyer. I have been defending privacy and freedom of speech in the digital environment for the past years. I think in terms of information. And information was chaos and mess after this earthquake. I think the fake news conversation has been very monopolized by the Donald Trump elections lately. But let's face it, during disasters, since the beginning of mankind, rumors exist. There's malicious people that start them, sure, but there's thousands of hundreds of people that retweet them, repost them, forward them on WhatsApp, on Facebook, and they become viral and suddenly they become truths. I put this picture up because my grandmother, yes, she uses WhatsApp, she sent me this picture telling me, do not go through there, this bridge is falling down, and you know what, it was a fake. And it was not only my grandmother, it was my lawyer colleagues and my friends that were sending it to me as well. Another big problem was Facebook's algorithms, because somebody posted, help, urgent help needed in this, this time, in this place, we need coffee and doctors. So the way Facebook's algorithms work, that post had so many interactions that 72 hours later, it was still at the top of our newsfeed. So people went out on the streets and in coordinated fashion, blocking traffic, taking resources where they were no longer needed and actually impeding rescue labors. Some people had hundreds of coffee, while in southern rural areas, there was no water. You also have to take into consideration that it's nice you live in London and in Europe, but in Mexico, we cannot count on our government. The authorities are so deeply colluded with organized crime that we do not trust them. There's forced disappearances, and it's one of the most dangerous countries to be a journalist in the world. So if you watch, have you watched Narcos on Netflix? Okay, if you have, picture those people coordinating the earthquake relief efforts. So a couple of friends and colleagues came together at Horizontal, the cultural center where I manage art and literature events. We were literally in the middle of ground zero. We had so much information, but we still felt disinformed, and we were wondering what to do. And that's how we came up with Verificado 19S, which means verified 19S. Our goal was to manage data and fact-check information so we could make citizen help more efficient during a time of chaos, of course. The first thing we did was this map. The first thing you want to do after a catastrophe is just visualize collapsed buildings, donation centers where you can go help, and shelters for people that were homeless. But this map has a couple of problems. First of all, we were a small team. We were 30 people, maybe the first day, maybe less. We were biking around the city, verifying information ourselves. But when we opened it and we crowdsourced it, and we had so many data points that we couldn't verify them anymore. So that's where this whole reflection about fake data comes up. And then it's Google Maps. It's closed source. We couldn't edit the code freely. It had a data cap. We couldn't process more than certain data points. Google kindly gave us a grant to top that, but we had access to Google because we have privilege. And then we had to manually be refreshing the database. Our Excel spreadsheets were a mess. I wish I knew how to do that better, but I hope I know now here at MozFest. So you're probably wondering at this point, why didn't we use Ushahidi? It's cooler, it's open source. It's made by African developers and not Silicon Valley white men. We didn't know Ushahidi existed. And then in the middle of the emergency, my friend Sergio, who started the map, said like, oh wait, there's Ushahidi. And we're like, dude, now it's too late. And this had its pros. We had it on our iPhones. Google adopted it, so it was on everybody's smartphones. And this gave us legitimacy very quickly. But 3 days after that, the informational needs were very different. We did not need to visualize things anymore. We needed real-time information about what was needed. And by that point, we had merged so many databases that Google gave us another really kind grant, and we went to use Crisis Maps, the Crisis Maps Google platform. We had all these layers with verified, unverified information, crowdsourced information, MIT and Harvard, even OpenStreetMaps merged their databases with us. And you know what? At the end, we were aiming for a user-friendly interface, but this was so not user-friendly because Google didn't have enough icons for all the different layers that we were using. So the crowdsourced information and the internet hotspots was exactly the same point. So I wish we used Ushahidi, but we didn't. So maybe next time. By the way, Ushahidi has a plugin that has different, that can allow for different verification layers and management of layers. It took us 5 days to figure that out, coding, in the middle of an emergency. But too late, that's what happens. In parallel, a group of organizations and NGO developed a true verification methodology. This is a data viz that shows the most important networks and nodes that used our Twitter hashtag in 12 hours during the night of Saturday night to Sunday morning. It was over 14,000 tweets and more than 300 nodes of different information. All the organizations are mapped here. I will tweet it later so you can see the details. This is our verification methodology. I unfortunately do not have time to go through all of it. This could be a workshop itself, but I just want to show you how complex it is. Verification is not a black and white process. It's not, oh, verified, unverified, this goes, this doesn't. It's a process. And we're not in a newsroom. Information is not worthy because it's newsworthy. All information has to be put out there. Not publishing something actually impedes rescue labors. So just very quickly, the most important things, to be a verifier in our team meant essentially two things: that you were a monitor on site at the disaster zones, coordinating effort reliefs, and verifying exactly what tools were needed. And then a node behind the computer, we acted as a sort of call center. So what happened after the earthquake was that a lot of WhatsApp groups were formed organically by neighbors, by a network of donation centers. So we monitor social networks and these WhatsApp groups. They were self-regulated, and if they couldn't get a resource by themselves, then one of her nodes flagged it and started verifying it, putting it, again, in very messy spreadsheets. Once the information was verified, our designers made these flyers that we posted on Twitter. Twitter was one of the only social networks that allowed us to post real-time information. During the emergency, Facebook was pretty much, we couldn't use it at all. Here I have, it's 2 a.m. Volunteers are not needed. We have the address. And we needed tree plates, carpentry nails, iron clamps, breakers, screwdrivers. We even got electric saws at some point. We got every single thing, even little boots for rescue dogs. I kid you not. We flew this in from Atlanta. And then by Sunday night, we put this flyer up because it was very important to say, to verify means two things: to see something with your own eyes, or to talk to somebody that has, to talk to at least two people that have seen it with their own eyes. Anything else is fake news. So we started putting these flyers out because we wanted to foster digital literacy and critical thinking. And it was very cool because to verify started becoming a trend. So social network users were self-regulating themselves after we were verifying information and posting this and making campaigns about this and asking between each other, have you verified this? Can you please put a timestamp on your tweet? Another thing was data protection, because people were asking us, why are you not publishing the phone numbers in the flyers so that people can directly contact them? Because of data protection and privacy standards, right? We had to take them into consideration. And at the end, our methodology worked. NASA took our map as a starting point for their analysis. Greenpeace, they had a huge donation center along with the biggest team of medical volunteers. And they said that our Twitter feed was the most important resource so that they could mobilize the things that they had in their own donation centers. I got a call at 8 a.m. one day from the Israeli army asking me if I could please tell them where to go because the government didn't know. And the best part was that we were literally deploying the Israeli army for the next days, effectively saving more than a couple of lives. It was amazing. But what was I doing? Telling them that. It should have been the government. In the end, this is not a story about technology. We could have used any map. We could have used any spreadsheet format. We got in touch with Ushahidi, the digital humanitarian standby task force, a little bit too late. But this is a story about solidarity and strength, because that's what saved lives. Technology was shit, to be honest. It was our networks of trust that could actually accomplish something. This picture is the symbol of unity in Mexico. Rescuers put their fist up when they were digging victims from underneath the rubble so they could hear their voices. The fist is the symbol of Mexican strength and the abandonment of the government. In the end, we were over 500 volunteers processing over 30 databases. We didn't even know Ushahidi. We had no idea about how to do this. But I want to thank each and every one of these volunteers because we all left our hearts and souls on the lines, especially the on-site monitors and the nodes. They didn't sleep for days. They didn't eat for days. Nothing mattered but actually getting the resources where they were necessary to be able to help and save lives. I want to thank them because with them I learned that horizontal and organic structures make information flow so much better than in hierarchy and bureaucracy like the model the government has. We did this because we love our city. We love our people. Technology did not matter. It was only that we put all our heart out there. Support our cause, because the earthquake is over, but this is only the beginning. Verificado's job is done, but I am on the board of these two amazing organizations that are doing post-earthquake advocacy strategies. We are not going to have our government's support. Our cities are devastated. Our people are destroyed. We still have to go on with rescue labors. And hurry up, because you know what? We live in a seismic zone. And as dreading as it sounds, and as scared as I am, we don't know when the next earthquake is going to hit. And we have to be prepared this time. Thank you very much.
Questions for Gisela? So what would you have done differently, Gisela? I think there's one.
There's a couple.
I want to find out what were the lessons?
I think, well, first of all, there was a great workshop here yesterday at MozFest on where to put your data in rows and columns. If I had known that before, that would have been a complete lifesaver, and definitely I think if we would have used Ushahidi, it would have saved us quite some time, for sure.
Great, there's a question over here.
Thank you very much, that was amazing. I sadly didn't catch the beginning of it, so please, I apologize if you covered this already. I was wondering, in terms of, so there are lots of other places around the world that are earthquake zones and things like that. How, if people wanted to replicate this model, which is written in a particular language, into like different languages, and how to, what's the best way to join up rather than doing things completely separately?
Yeah, for sure. The work of the digital humanitarians is very good regarding that, and Standby Task Force. They are a worldwide group of volunteers that come together using technology for humanitarian relief around the world. What we are working on, you can look them up, and they are great, they are amazing. I wish I knew them before, but I don't know, these things happen. I cannot know everything at the same time, especially in the middle of an earthquake. What we are working on is actually opening our code, because one of the advantages of not working with Ushahidi was that we actually did develop and innovate new things. So we're opening our code, cleaning up our GitHub a bit, because it's really messy. We had over 50 coders working at once. And as for me, the real goldmine is the verification methodology. So we're going to have that explained and printed in English and Spanish. Because also, most information out there is in English. So the language barrier was also a challenge for us at some point. We want this to be available in Spanish for all of Latin America, but it will be available in English as well. This is the goldmine. It doesn't matter what platform you use for mapping disasters. I think verification technologies are really what it comes to the end, at the end. Thank you very much for your question.
There's one right on the front. Whether you want to, we can repeat the question after.
Would you say that the technology itself was bad, or was it the lack of education around technology that, for the people who are in your effort, that was the problem?
That's a very good question. So she's asking if would I say that the technology itself was bad, or the lack of education around technology that our volunteers had. I think in the middle of a disaster, the technological solutionism approach doesn't work. There were so many people saying, hey, let's do apps to save it, let's do an app where you ping you're safe. In the middle of a crisis, how is that going to be useful? And I also think we didn't know about Ushahidi, and it has to do with the network effect, right? Because the more people use a platform, the more it will be likely to get used more. So I don't think the programmers that were with us, they are amazing. At the end, it was not even about programmers, but it was about data analysts, because we had a lot of data. So rather than technology, I would say it was about the methodology. Technology is just a tool. It's just one more tool. So what we needed was a really good methodology and processing of data, and we could have used anything to speed up the process. It did speed up the process. But our general feeling at the end was we did everything manually. Sure, technology is a very broad category. We used Twitter, we used Google Docs, spreadsheets, but what I mean is that the software development itself did not make a difference at the end, because we were doing everything manually through a call center, verifying things when it came to the most complicated, at the time, and the most complicated moments. I don't know if that answers the question.
I think it does a little bit, but it also makes me wonder, you approach the issues of, the white men in Silicon Valley who seem to be hindering your process, right? I wonder if there's a way that you could have brought them in a little bit differently, so that their resources of knowledge that they have in that field could have helped you in a different way.
No, and it did help. Google did help a lot. We were working with their engineers, and I like this question, I like this questioning. We were working hand in hand with their engineers, but their Google Crisis Map platform was not optimal at the end. And I also have a strong political position pro-open software. So it has to do more about my political position pro-open software and against proprietary software than it actually has to do with the use of one technology or the other. But I do believe Ushahidi would have been better, because they also had this plugin that allows for different verification layers, and that took us a while to figure out. But it only tells you how we wanted a user-friendly interface, and everybody was used to using Google Maps anyways, But when you have different needs, you have to change your platform and technology, and our needs changed every day. If any of you do any software development, you know that the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what is going to be the use of this technology? What is going to be the actual use? And the use was different day to day. So the needs were different day to day. What I want to highlight by saying that technology was shit, I know it's a very broad concept, but it's just hands and people that save lives. We shouldn't make technology this big, it's gonna save the world and revolutionize earthquakes. It's people and how we use it, more than likely.
We have actually one more question there.
Just details. You keep mentioning this network Shahidi. Hello, I've never heard of it before, and I can't find it. Could you spell it for me, please?
Yeah, of course.
I'm sorry. It's very inane.
Sorry, I just jumped in mentioning Ushahidi. So Ushahidi is USHAHIDI.
Thank you very much.
I hope so. And it's an open source platform that is used for mapping disasters. So they already have a methodology in place, and they have different sorts of maps in place. And it was made by African developers. So this is also supporting different platforms and decentralizing platforms as well. But as I said, Google was also very supportive. It's not that they were not, but they didn't quite work out either.
That's great. Let's give a round of applause to Gisela. Thank you. Thank you.